Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, so I want to start off the night by thanking everyone for coming out tonight. I know it's a Tuesday, 7:30 at night. You guys could be a lot of other places, but you're here. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you guys for coming out. This program, you guys are in for a real treat tonight. To begin, my name is Charlie Campbell. I'm the Vice President of Programming for Graduate and Part-Time Student Council. And we focus with graduate students as well as those students that are under 12 credits or part-time. And my philosophy for this whole year has been bridging the gap between alumni and those students that are, like myself, 2 months away from graduating. We always hear about all these individuals that have these great jobs, like these individuals right behind us. And we hear about when they graduated, but there's always been this gray area in between that, they graduated Kean, and then they became successful. Well, what happened in between? What did they go through? What ups and downs did they have? What support did they have? What routes did they take? Did they work? Did they not work? And together, we can learn from that. And I want to make sure that Kean University never loses sight of its alumni, because we need to help each other help each other. And before we begin our program, I just do have a few announcements. If you look on your tables, you guys will see a flyer with a couple superheroes on it. Kean University is partaking in a Relay for Life. It's going to be on April 10th from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. This is a huge fundraiser that the university is partaking on, and we're trying to raise around $20,000. Over at our table, right over here on our left side, guys, we do have a container. We'll accept anything, please. If you have spare change in your pocket, or $1, $5, or if you're feeling generous and want to put a 50 or 100 in there, we would definitely take that, okay? But please, for those that you might not know, Relay for Life is associated with the American Cancer Society, and it raises funds for research and development of vaccines or other types of medications that can help either fight or prevent cancer. So please, guys, it's a really good cause, and Kean is very deeply rooted within trying to make our $20,000 goal, and you have an opportunity to partake in that. Also, guys, next you will see on your table we have a Rebuilding Warriors brochure. I have Mr. Jeffrey Mullins here that is going to explain a little bit more into the program.
Well, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Jeff Mullins. I've been in the Army for 26 years. I got involved with Rebuilding Warriors. Thank you. With Rebuilding Warriors in the past 3 years. We started doing service dogs for wounded warriors, not the Wounded Warrior Project, but people who had PTSD, amputees, and mild traumatic brain injuries. And it is very, very good for the individuals who receive them. They get them free of charge. Mainly, I've been selling T-shirts, ramping up to our fundraiser, April 26th, down at the Jersey Shore. And on the back side of the T-shirt, you can see the Rebuilding Warrior logo with the American flag. And we have shirts that represent the Marine Corps, the Army, the Air Force, Navy, and if anybody just doesn't know which branch they want to support, we also have one with an American flag. So shirts, I am selling the shirts over here, 15 bucks. We did do a venture up here a couple months ago in December, and surprisingly enough, we did extremely well. And I applaud the university and the departments who participated in purchasing. We actually raised close to 1,200 bucks. So every dollar that gets sold for a T-shirt goes directly to a dog, all right? And nobody gets paid, not like the Wounded Warrior Project. If you ever take a look at them, big, big, big business. And we don't want to be like them. So thank you. I'll be over here to answer any questions.
Mr. Mullins, I want to thank you for all your time as well as your service. So please, everyone, check out the brochure that's on your table. Graduate and Part-Time Student Council, as you said, we had the opportunity to work with the Rebuilding Warriors Fund, and we were able to raise around $1,200. So please, once again, you have an opportunity to help out a warrior that's coming home and might need a little help with the transitioning process back into that home environment. So please check out that brochure, and if you can, Mr. Mullins is right over here. He is selling his shirts tonight, so if you would like to support, please make sure you stop by that table. And now for our actual program. So as you guys can see me, we have 4 very talented recent Kean alumni, okay? They're all gonna have an opportunity to tell their experiences and their stories. And then after that, we'll have an open panel or an open discussion. So please, as the program goes on, think of some ideas that you might have to ask them, and think about your own future. See if any of these individual stories relate to where you are right now or where you wanna be or how you wanna get there. Help each other out. Okay, so as of right now, I'm going to introduce Ms. Kimberly Bass, and she's going to introduce the board, and then from there on out, it's their show. So thank you for coming out, guys, and enjoy the program.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. We're just going to stay seated and kind of keep it casual. My name is Kim Bass. I graduated in 2010 with an executive MBA in international management, and I currently work for Shell Oil Company. So we're going to have each individual panelist just introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. My name is Molly Gill. I graduated with my bachelor's in 2012, and I was in a 5-year program, so the year after I graduated with my master's in 2000. And now I currently am a high school chemistry and physics teacher at New Providence High School.
Hi, I'm Michael Malazzo. I graduated from Kean in 2011 with a bachelor's in communication. I then went on to Cornell Law School the following fall, and I currently work at Debevoise & Plimpton, one of the leading law firms in New York City.
Hi, my name is Richard Murray, class of '89. I'm a seasoned veteran. And for the past few years, I've been working at Windstream Communication. It's a Fortune 500 company, and I've been working as a senior account executive in IT.
So when discussing this panel, we were kind of asked to share, our stories, and give some advice. And we're kind of like, well, what kind of advice would we give undergrads? And we kind of reflected upon where we were when we were an undergrad. Had we had a mentor, had we had someone to guide us, what would we really want to know? And reflecting on where I am right now in my career, from where I graduated with undergrad, the best advice is to always have faith in your education and to always never, ever lose faith in your drive. My education and my determination and drive, while it sounds simple, is really what has gotten me to where I am right now in my career. So I don't know if some of you, know exactly what you want to do when you graduate, if you know what career path you really want to take. But at the end of the day, no matter what you plan, you always have to plan for the unexpected, because that's essentially what happens. We had conversations over here before where your path in life is never direct. It's always kind of winding roads. And an example would be, I actually got my undergrad degree in criminal justice because my goal was to become an attorney. As I was getting my undergrad degree, I was also a paralegal. So my career as a paralegal was so robust that I kind of put law school to the side, and I kind of had a really great career. And in 2008, at the time, I was working for a very prominent law firm in New York City, and I got caught up with the market crash. So 2007, 2008 is when the real estate market kind of plummeted, the stock market plummeted, and I found myself for the first time in a situation where I was unemployed. Everything that I worked for, my schooling, all the work and years of hard work and dedication I put into it was kind of ripped out, from under me. So at that point, I was kind of faced with a fork in the road. What am I going to do? So I decided to actually come back to school here at Kean to get my master's, because despite anything that was going on at that time, education is something that you can always rely on. And it was my time here at Kean that I developed some really great relationships, met some really great people, and networked with those people. And because of my degree with Kean, I was actually able to meet people who worked for Shell Oil Company. I was able to get a job with Shell, and I've been flourishing in that job ever since. So to kind of look back, I got my degree in criminal justice, and here I am working at an oil company. Nothing that I've ever could have predicted or saw coming. But because you believe in yourself and you believe in your education, it kind of takes you through those, peaks and valleys, through life. So.
Thank you. All right, I just want to give you guys a little bit of background. Again, my name is Molly Gill. I started my career at Kean in 2008, and I was enrolled in the New Jersey Center for Science, Technology, and Mathematics. Most of you guys might know that as the STEM program. There's that big fancy building across the street. It's gorgeous. So I was enrolled in this 5-year bachelor's and master's program. So my kind of life at Kean was pretty much set. I graduated 4 years later with my bachelor's, and then over the year, I went continued with my master's, and graduated 2013, got a job. But I want to tell you guys a little bit more about my story. When I was going through, my career at Kean, one of my biggest things and one of my biggest pieces of advice to give you guys is to take advantage of every opportunity that's given to you. At Kean, so many different opportunities. I got involved in research because I was close with different professors, and I wanted to get my hands, into the science and education programs and careers and research. I took advantage of the different jobs that they offered here at Kean. I worked at undergraduate admissions. I gave tours and got involved in the Kean community, but I networked and met so many great people. I also tutored at Kean in the CAS building, and again, networking, and that's where I really got to perfect my career as becoming a teacher. So look for opportunities that are really going to help you, move along with your career and experience and make those connections. Before I came to this event, I stopped by the undergraduate admissions office, I stopped by the CAS, and I got to see all those people that I worked with and have really great conversations. So I think that it's really important to really get involved and seek out opportunities that could help you in your future. Also, work really hard. One of my biggest accomplishments is graduating in 2012. I graduated as valedictorian of the entire Kean University undergraduate class. I worked really hard in my classes, in my school, and it paid off. And that's one great thing. Your hard work will pay. Another thing that I think that would be really helpful to know is start making note of all of the things that you do, whether you attended an event or was part of a club. Keep a note of that, because you're going to have to come up with a resume, and you're going to have to talk about why are you good for this job. What makes you special, stand out, what gives you, that edge over everybody else. And you have to come up with those things, oh yeah, I did that event. Oh yeah, I did Relay for Life. So try to just, get involved and again, take advantage of the opportunities. So I really feel like that's, my background at Kean. Going from Kean to the real world is scary. I know that I took advantage of the CAS. They offer, I forget exactly what the office is called, but they can help you make your resume and write a cover letter and proofread it and give you advice about, I want to get this job. How am I going to get this? How can I best represent myself? So again, taking advantage of those opportunities that Kean offers you really, helps you along, and it helped me a lot. You could do practice interviews with them. So again, taking advantage of those opportunities. That's kind of my soapbox for tonight. I student taught at Linden High School, and again, I don't know if there's any education majors in here, but I student taught there and enjoyed it and got as much as I could out of that experience. And networking, Kean offers a lot of different routes for that. After, my student teaching, I had to apply for jobs. I was constantly on NJ.com and all the different websites that, they tell you about. So just keep searching and searching and searching and apply, and hopefully something, will come up. And for me, I went on 3 different job interviews, and it luckily worked out. I got my job at New Providence High School. Now I've been teaching there for 2 years, so I'm not, that far out of Kean. But within my career, I face different challenges, and you just have to be able to change and adjust and be open to different new opportunities and places and working well with everybody. So that's pretty much my story, but I just wanted to, again, say just take advantage of all the opportunities and be able to sell yourself and you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. So thank you.
Hi again, my name is Michael Malazzo. My path to Kean was a little more roundabout. I actually started at a different school for about 3 semesters, and then I stopped. And then I took several years off. By several, I mean about 4 or 5. And I did it all. I worked at a deli. I did personal training. I worked as a server. I worked as a bartender. So I was all over the place, and I decided to come back to school. I ended up at Kean as a part-time student. So while here, one of the things I learned, that because I was working full-time and being a part-time student, was I learned how to control time. I know it sounds kind of weird because time can't be controlled, but you can control what you do with it. So you learn by working full-time and going to school part-time, you learn to be efficient. By efficient, I don't mean working quickly. I mean working well and getting things done ahead of time. But that means you do it well the first time, so you don't have to go back and do it a second time. This has come in handy in my professional life because I can predict things that are going to pop up, and I start working on them ahead of time. So that way when someone asks for it, I'm already halfway done with it. That is something that you can control. You can't control when surprises are sprung on you, but you can control how you react to them. So control time rather than letting time control you. As Molly was saying about networking, it is very, very important. During my interview process actually in law school for firms after graduation, I ended up choosing a firm because I networked with one of the partners at the firm, and he was actually very helpful through the entire process and encouraged me to apply to other firms, encouraged me to interview, and then gave me the pros and cons of certain aspects of law and of each firm. And because he was so almost like a mentor to me, I ended up choosing that firm over a couple of other options, and I don't regret it to this day. It's only been about 6 months, but it's definitely some place where I belong, and I feel I've ended up there because of networking. So take advantage of every opportunity you have to network, and this means doing fundraisers. It also means being a leader. While at Kean, I started as an advocate for the court-appointed special advocate program. We work with abused and neglected children throughout the court system. I think every county in New Jersey has one, except for some county in southern New Jersey. But it's something you can get involved with. And while working full-time and going to school part-time, I still found time to do this because it's not a lot each month. It was maybe 2 or 3 hours each month. But by doing that, I networked with attorneys, I met judges, I met politicians. And the abilities I learned from doing this, speaking in front of others, being professional, something that I'll carry through my entire life. And one of the last things I'll say about Kean is use the faculty. And by use, I mean find someone that, professor that you relate to and who's helpful, and become their mentee. I was a communications major, and there are 2 professors, Dr. Sargent and Dr. Fitch, who are absolutely wonderful. They helped me not only through Kean, they also helped me with my law school application process, and I'm actually still friends with them to this day. Every time I talk to them, I still call them Dr. Fitch and Dr. Sargent. No matter how many times they tell me to call them Jack and Fred, I can't more than once. But those are 2 friends who I will have for the rest of my life because they helped me get through Kean University and while working full-time. So I guess to leave you with, Kean is an absolutely amazing school, but use its resources. Use the students, use faculty, use CAS, use Career Services, I think, does the resumes. Use all those resources because life is not going to be straight. If I would have thought 7 years ago, I would have been at W. Boyce in Plimpton. Most people probably don't know that some of our clients include Amazon, Time Warner Music, Dell Computers. So we deal with some of the biggest companies in the world. 7, 8 years ago, I would have never thought I would be a lawyer, let alone at a top New York City law firm. But I ended up there because of Kean, because of the people I met and the skills I gained while here. So don't be afraid to go out and get what you want. Push hard, use your drive, push forward, and don't take no for an answer. You might have 4 doors slammed in your face, but resilience, what, I can do this, will never harm you. It'll only help you in your career.
Great job, everyone, so far. As I mentioned, my name is Richard Murray, and once again, I consider myself the seasoned veteran from a class of '89. My route, first of all, my original background is I was an international student. My mom and my sister and my brother, we migrated from Jamaica, and we came. So it was very difficult, first of all, the transition coming to a foreign country. But ultimately, being a part of it, within like 2 years, I was here at Kean University, don't have the family background and the support and the knowledge as far as how to navigate the college network. But it was amazing, just really, first of all, just being part of the sports and being a varsity soccer. That really helped to build a family, and immediately I was able to start a foundation where the coaches or my teammates were able to help me navigate as far as college life and what it's all about. Also, to really think about, and I'll explain why later, is to, as some of you guys explained, to really get involved with some of the groups that is available here. I know I was very involved with International Student Association, other clubs that I was very much involved in, the Political Science Club, and one of the things that we were able to do was actually encourage political candidates that was running for the presidency. Actually, we were able to have one that came here. We also was able to influence a former president to actually visit and during the political time as well. But there's a lot of different impact that you could have, and just as everyone knows, it's Kean University, but it's really in the political world. When you look at Kean University, it's really a high-end name because of the Kean family, and being the Kean family and their connection to New Jersey. So a lot of politicians really value as far as the name and also the university as well. As far as, just to switch a little bit of gears, I know one of the club that was also involved in, which is a Holocaust Center, and basically that was also not a heart-wrenching experience, but it really helped me to understand a little bit more about life, a little bit more about the world, was when we used to have some of the Holocaust survivors' children, or even some themselves that we used to came to Kean University and really speak about their experience. And that really opened my eyes to some of the things that are going on in the world and how much it impact, in this situation. It was a devastating situation that took place. As far as just after I graduated, and just like this guy said, my path was originally to focus on going into law. And for different reasons, I did not end up going into the law. I did for a while, just like Pam did. I was a paralegal at a mid-sized law firm, and at that time, a little bit after, I was also accepted to go to law school, but as I mentioned, for different reasons, I decided not to. And one of my friends was the one that introduced me to the IT business, and basically I saw his check and what he was making. And that really influenced me. I said, okay, that's something I can make right now. But before I go any further, I also want to reiterate that when you think about your job, when you think about your life, when you think about your education, if you don't remember anything that I say, just remember it is a journey and it's not a destination. There can be changes. Sometimes, as they said, you might start out with a certain major and it changes. It's really a journey, and just continue to fight, continue to grow. But I started being in the IT business, and the company that I work for right now, Windstream Communication, 25% of the Fortune 500 company, they're our clients. And pretty much the Fortune 1000, we have a lot of those clients as well. So we really meet with a lot of high-end clients. The one thing that I've learned over the years as far as transition, and I wish I knew that before, I'll just tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. One bad situation that happened was I went to an interview, as some of you guys might be thinking about. One thing that happened was the person that which was supposed to be a hiring manager, I wasn't meeting with him. I meet with someone that reports to him. And this also helped me to be, it really humbled me, basically. So what happened is I felt like, okay, why don't I end up meeting with this manager? Why should I be meeting with this person? They asked me to do something, basically, to do a certain task. And I felt like, oh, really, this is being disrespectful. And so my actions and reactions really reflected that. And by the time I got to the manager, he looked at me and he said, listen, this is a person that is very dear to me. I absolutely lean on this person, and because of your reaction and how you acted with him, I'm sorry, you're not going to get the job. That was my first experience with saying, listen, no matter where you go, no matter who you interact with, and you start looking into interviewing, whether it's through a university or on the outside, just make sure you're humble in every aspect. And another situation that happened was when we was engaging, and this was after we ended up at a job, I heard about a situation where there was a receptionist, and we were going to a high-end client. Basically, it was a multi-million-dollar contract opportunity. And this particular person, that wasn't me this time, but basically they saw the receptionist, and they said to the receptionist, their reaction wasn't one that was very gentle and very humble. It was like, please, in a sense, their body language and their reaction was, get out of my way. We really want to get to the boss. But apparently, the way they value their receptionist was one that she was basically part of the whole management core. And when the upper management heard that, we ended up losing the contract. So once again, if you're in any field, make sure in any field you interact with anyone, make sure you're always humble, always graceful, always very, very giving to whoever you end up meeting. One last thing I wanted to share is I sat down with my director before I came here, and I said, this is what I'm doing tonight. What are some of the points, because I'm part of a management team that actually do the interviews and everything, and I asked him specifically for his perspective. So I have a top 10 things, just like Dave Letterman, that he said, okay, these are the things that I think are good, bad, and ugly when I think about someone before the interview process, during the interview process, and after. So I'll just read them real quick. It says, number one, resume. One of the things that they look at is job hopping, just to make sure that no matter what you do, if there's sometime you reach in a situation where there's a job that you might feel like, man, it's becoming very difficult, do whatever you can to persevere, because it look and it reflect on your resume, just if you don't bounce back and forth between different jobs. Short tenure. Also, if you start drafting your resume and you start writing different things, if you're involved in a club, if you're involved in sports, or if you did something, make sure you can articulate about it. That it's not something that you put on there, but you really think it through and said, okay, when I'm in the interview process, these are the things I'm going to say about what I did. Also, internship. Number two, that's internship. Make sure you do whatever. Take advantage of being an intern. Even for myself, when I was here at Kean University, I work at the admissions office, and that really gave me some experience. And when I was able to put it on my resume as well. Also, you can be involved in different clubs and organizations. That have a lot of weight, and it could be like a fraternity or sorority. Sometimes the person that is going to interview you can be part of your fraternity or sorority as well. Or they could have ended up playing soccer like I did, and that's something that we could communicate, because when you go on an interview, sometimes it's not all what you do, but how you can sell yourself. And when you make that connection with that person, sometimes that could be the difference between the next candidate and you. And when I interviewed someone last year, the number one turnoff for me is if someone comes in, my number one question I'm going to ask is, what do you know about our company? Make sure you do the research and find out about the company, because that would say you're really making the investment to really know about the company. That's the same way that you're going to do with the clients as well. Also, proof your resume for errors and all of those different things. Social media, be careful about it. It's very much a lot of the work field right now, they look at social media. So make sure whatever kind of social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever, it's really, you want to make sure the connections that you have is not going to jeopardize the opportunity to get a job as well. Be polite to everyone you meet. I mentioned that. And your professional appearance. And the number one thing in the business world is LinkedIn. If you're not used to LinkedIn as yet, please start familiarizing yourself with it, because a lot of companies look at the histories. You can also make connection. One of the things with Kean, you can actually go on LinkedIn, you put in education, you put in Kean University, and then depending on what kind of field that you're in, whether it's law or IT, you could see thousands like thousands and thousands of Kean graduates, alumni, that right away, if you're in that field, you can immediately make that connect. That you can network as well, where they can direct you. What if I see someone from Kean University send me a LinkedIn and want some kind of maybe reference or anything like that, or say, okay, can you give me direction as far as about this job? I'm more than happy to do that. But I'm not saying everyone will, but that's something that could be very valuable as well. As I mentioned, it is a journey. As everyone mentioned, sometimes there's bumps and bruises. I've been in also a situation where for the first time, because of my job, they were downgrading. They basically got bought out, and I was on the short end of the stick where I was unemployed for about 3 to 4 months. But it can be challenging. But ultimately persevering, and where I'm at right now, I'm very happy. But just hang in there, and remember, it is a journey, it's not a destination.
So as you can see, there was a theme here with perseverance, believing in yourself, never giving up, networking. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. Do you have any questions from the floor for any of us up here? Don't be shy. Yes? So for me, because my journey was a little bit different, I worked full-time and I went to school full-time. Looking back, I think I had very unrealistic expectations. I think that I was so eager to excel in my job or excel in whatever career path I was choosing at the time that I didn't realize that you really need to lay the foundation. You really need to put in the time, the work, the effort. I mean, I'm 39 years old right now, and I'm pretty much the pinnacle of my career right now. So if you asked me when I was 18 or 21 years old, in my head, I'm like, oh, 25, 28, 29, I'm going to be rocking it. And you can, but it's a path, and it's like building blocks. You still need to kind of build on that. So, my journey was a little bit different. I mean, do you have any input on that?
Mine, I'm still so new in my career, and I hope that I'm a teacher right now, but maybe I could be an administrator or a supervisor at some point. So I don't really know what my timeline will be for that. But after I really, before I even graduated, I was working on my resume. I, was applying, looking for jobs, starting, I think it was even February, before spring break, February, March, around this time. I started looking at all those different websites, and I started applying, even though I knew it was early. And more, jobs were posted. Again, I was an education major, so it might be a little bit different. But I just kept looking for jobs and, signing up and doing, applying. And I didn't hear back from the school that I now currently work at. I didn't hear back from them for months. They didn't contact me. I didn't even think that they were going to remember me or give me a call back. And, lo and behold, they did call me back. So it's really hard to predict. I was hoping that I would get hired, really soon after college. But the whole thing is just like a mystery, the whole hiring process. But I think having those connections with people, and again, just apply, and see what happens. I don't know if you have anything to add.
This might be the lawyer in me, but could you repeat your question so I can make sure I understand it correctly? So I guess I'm a little different because I went from Kean straight into law school. But so I'll answer as it coming out of law school. And the answer is I don't have patience, so I want things now, but that's not how life works. So what you do is plan. And things change. I went to law school, sure I was going to do litigations, like the lawyers you see on TV arguing in front of juries. It's not what I do now. I help big companies draft contracts to protect their rights when they're buying multi-billion-dollar companies or selling multi-billion-dollar companies. So plans change, but just have a goal. So what do you think you want to do after school? Are you involved in any organizations currently? So if, with that, you're doing a great start, look into volunteering for your local politician, local congressman. They're always looking for interns, and you have to start somewhere. And to make those changes, you have to know how the inside works. I don't know how politics works. I know how elections work because I vote. But other than that, I'm not sure. But by getting inside your chosen field, that's how you start getting there. So you might not be able to start changing the world immediately after graduation, but you can start by changing one life at a time. And you first start by changing yours, learning exactly how you can start an organization that changes, learn how you can get involved with nonprofits that are changing the world, whether it's CASA, whether it's March for Dimes, whether it's for, anything you think about. Just think about your interests and go find. There is a website, I want to say it's volunteermatch.org. It might be volunteermatch.com, but it's like Volunteer Match. And they're nonprofits that need things done. Sometimes it's simple as going to speak about the nonprofit to a classroom. Sometimes it's about helping them design websites. Sometimes it's about helping them, I don't recall what else costs we put up there for, but just look at Volunteer Match, find an organization that matches your interest, go donate a weekend and develop those skills. And as most of us, I think all of us said, make sure you put that on a resume. So I guess to get back to your original question, there is, right after school, you shouldn't, never be satisfied. Never be satisfied. Always want to push yourself harder. If you don't fail, you're not trying hard enough. Because, in my job now, I fail all the time. I'm supposed to, but I push myself, and the reason I'm allowed to fail is I have a partner that checks my work, so I mess up, and they know that I don't have the knowledge they do. So find something that is outside your comfort zone, and do that starting now. And that's how you'll get personal growth that'll set you up to settle into the career that you want to end up in. Did I answer your question, or did I answer? Okay.
As far as my expectation is concerned, there's a couple of times. At first, when I started at Kean University, we were ranked in the top 20 at one point in my sophomore year. We were number 2 in the country in soccer. And my goal was to become a professional soccer player. So the expectation there was high. One of the things that I did learn, because on my junior year I ended up getting a knee injury, is always have plan B and a backup plan. So I'm not sure if anyone here that does sports, but also just to make sure education is number one and it's there as a plan B. As far as graduation, I first started out, and after I graduated, I was at a mid-sized law firm, as I mentioned. And my expectation was ultimately making, and I was motivated by money. That was it. Make a lot of money as possible. The one thing that I will encourage everyone to really think about, it's great that you can make a lot of money, and right now I make 6 figures in my IT field. But sometimes you might reach that point, but it's not the ultimate thing that's going to make you satisfied. So just really search internally to say what is it that is going to make you happy and what is going to make you satisfied. Ultimately, you want something that is also going to be provided for yourself, and ultimately when you have a family as well, that's great, but also internally feel satisfied as well. That's also going to be important. In reference to, as you mentioned about my perspective on failure, someone always said a winner is someone that gets up one more times than they're knocked down. Another perspective to think about, even in the baseball field, when you think about someone who is considered that make a multi-million-dollar, they pretty much fail 70% of the time. The other 30%, they bat 300. If you're a baseball player, then you're going to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. A lot of it is really perspective. So, but my encouragement is really just don't limit yourself as far as where you are and where you can go, but ultimately just really think about that it's a journey, once again, and just continue to work at it, basically. Okay, I'll say real quick. The, when I was probably about my sophomore year, as I was going through my undergraduate, I was like, I really wasn't involved in any club or anything like that. I was involved in soccer, which was sports. And I saw my friend, his name is Graham Blackman Harris. He was at that time, he was vice president of the International Students Association. And I saw his resume, and I was shocked. He had all of these different things that was on there, and immediately, I was like, my motivation, which is a bad motivation, is I wanted to get involved in a lot of different clubs so that I can have a good resume. But once I started getting involved, it was amazing. The friendship that I built, the family that I built, the satisfaction that I get, as I mentioned, some of being a part of the Holocaust Center, being part of the Political Science Club, and working with presidential candidates, which is also one of those things. I'm not sure if the Political Science Club is still here, but if it's not, you can start it, okay? And you can influence some of the politicians, that they can come to Kean and make speeches and get to meet some of the students and do some kind of town hall just like this as well. But if they are still here, then you can get involved. At one point, I was the vice president, and also, I believe I was the vice president or the president and vice president of the Criminal Justice Club, one or the two. But you can get involved from that. But motivation, as far as outside, it was money. But ultimately, right now, it's really not money. Over the years, your motivation changed. Being married and have a wife and a kid, the motivation really changes, and the perspective in life changes as well.
As for my motivation, I think most of it's internal, and I have a cliche saying, I guess. People say it in different ways, but I always want to be better tomorrow than I am today. I never go back to who I was yesterday. And that's kind of what I live by. I've made quite a few mistakes in my life. Nothing I'll say on camera, but ask me when the cameras are off, and I can tell you a little bit more. But so that's my motivation, is always be better. And it's tough sometimes, because there are days when you just want to quit. Since last Monday, I've billed over 90 hours for work. So meaning I billed 90 hours, I've probably worked about 100, 105, because it's just been, some things I'm working on, been very busy. And it's not something I can say no to, because I'm the only one that can do this work on this matter. And there's some nights when I'm still at the office at 10 o'clock, and I'm like, I really don't want to do this. Why am I here? But then I realize I'm learning, and that's why I'm there, because I'm progressing as a person as well as in a professional life. Something I just thought of, as you said, get knocked down 6 times, get up 7. But also, don't think of it as a failure as necessarily a failure. If you try something that doesn't work, maybe that try didn't work, but if you learned something from that experience, you didn't fail, you learned, and use that to drive yourself forward. And I think you also asked who are our motivators or who we idolize. Growing up, my parents divorced when I was very young. They both worked 2 jobs to support their 4 boys. They were 3 younger brothers, quite rambunctious. Growing up, I didn't appreciate them enough because they were never around because they were working. And as the big brother, I tended to be the babysitter quite often. But looking back, they are my idols because they were working 2 jobs, because they weren't home much, we never had to worry about food, and we were able to be involved in sports, even if they couldn't always be there physically. They were always to make sure that they were there emotionally when we needed them. So my parents would definitely be my idols.
As far as my motivation and where it came from, I think, like Mike said, most of my motivation came within, but it happened because I had a goal in mind. I wanted to be a teacher ever since I was little, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I knew I had to do go through point A, B, C to get there. But when I got to Kean, I didn't know what type of teacher I wanted to be. I could go down the mathematics road or the chemistry road, and that's where kind of my inspiration and motivation happened at Kean. One of my professors, Dr. Dil Ramanathan, I had her for chemistry, the intro to chemistry class, chemistry 101, chem 1, whatever you want to call the class, and she was just amazing. And so I think you talked about before, you have like a connection with a professor, and she, kind of became my guide. And I don't know if you guys are close with your your mentors or the person who you meet when you go and register and say what class you have to take. Sorry. I think it'll be okay, hopefully. Okay. I could always use my teacher voice too, but which I might have to use. But that professor, she really, helped plot me through the points I had to go through at Kean. So she was my motivation. She really turned me on to chemistry and teaching and just loving what you do. And she also got me involved in research. And again, getting involved within your field or whatever you want to do as early as possible, I think is really important. So I got into science research my sophomore year of college, and then I continued my junior year and my senior year. And those research experiences I got to put on my resume, which was really awesome. Hello? Okay. I don't know. Whenever it fails, you turn the technology off and back on, and somehow it works. That's what I go through for my teaching day. So she really was my motivation and got me through Kean and through my college career. So again, having that person, she was my motivation as far as my job. But of course, my parents, both my parents were teachers, so again, they helped instill with me the motivation that I find within today. But again, I met somebody at Kean, a professor at Kean really motivated me to where I am today.
For me, my motivation is kind of twofold. One is internal, like we all said, and the other one was my father. My father was a blue-collar worker, worked 3-4 jobs to, support the family, and he always wanted me to be better than him. So that's something, as a parent, you always want your child to aspire to be better than you. So that was my initial motivation, and what I've learned over the years is that my motivation has evolved. So initially it was because of my father. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to make them happy and be successful. And as I started to be successful, I actually felt like the more bumps in the road and the more failures that I encountered, the stronger I became and the bigger my appetite became to be more successful, to prove that that bump in the road or that stumbling block wasn't going to hold me back, that I was going to aspire to be, bigger and better. And over the years, that desire just keeps getting bigger and bigger and making my dad more proud now. Yeah.
Set goals for yourself. Look a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, set goals. They're going to change. They'll probably change tomorrow and they'll change the day after, but set goals, because that should help motivate you. Whether the goal is money, whether the goal is a home, whether the goal is a family, whether the goal is being a better person, whatever it is, write them down and make them explicit. Don't just write, when I say goals, write these down somewhere. I have sitting in my office, my 1, 3, and 5 year goals at my law firm. But write them down and don't be specific. Don't be like, I want to have a good career. I want to work at a political organization that is going to change the voting laws. Be as specific as possible, and every day look at that, at least every week, and then make sure you're doing something every day to work towards those goals.
One other thing that I wanted to mention, a few months ago, what we call a trainer that constantly trains us, and the particular training was about time management, and as you mentioned about setting goals, and that was part of it, setting goals. But he did a demonstration. He had a big jar, and there was a lot of rocks that was in that big jar. Also, he had another jar that has sand and another jar that has water. And basically, what the experiment was is if you take all of those and you have another jar, and how are you going to fit everything in this other big jar, was if you try to put the stones first, and then you pour the sand in between it and the water, it will work. But if you try to put the water first, or you try to put the sand first, it just would not work. And basically, the end of when he did a demonstration about time management and about prioritizing, as you mentioned, it's actually very, very important. So when you start thinking about setting goals, let's also make sure you prioritize those things, whether it's health, whether it's family, whether it's, once again, the motivation might be about money or the job or the education. just make sure as you start making investment in those goals that you prioritize those. Because what he said also at the end is once you put a rock in there, which is a big goal, the big objective, and the big motivation, you find out there's still room where you can pour the sand in between, and you can also put, so maybe health or sports might be secondary or third choices. Once you prioritize and make those big goals and invest in it, those are the small things that is curricular activities or hobbies or everything, it ultimately will be able to fit in as well. But make sure you prioritize as you're making those goals.
Any other questions? Yes. Well, for me, a lot of the goals that I set for myself was, kind of preparing myself for interviewing. Small goals, small steps. Preparing myself for interviewing, preparing myself for resume preparation. Working with someone to kind of put all of my activities that I did with school. How can that really apply, to real life? So for me, it was kind of, small steps. Putting the resume together and finding a mentor like that. Molly?
As far as my goals, coming out of Kean was basically get a job. Get a resume, get a job. I knew I wanted to be a teacher, so that was very specific. I don't know how it is when you're looking for jobs for other careers, but just get a job. I was lucky. Interview process. I think I had like 2 or 3 schools that offered me jobs. So then, I was lucky I got to choose, which path. So I think because, I was very, very lucky that I got to choose a school that I knew I would be really happy with. But most teachers, especially if I'm a science teacher, we're in more of a high demand job right now. There's not as many of us out there. But I know a ton of physical education teachers and history teachers that do have trouble finding a job. So again, just getting your foot in the door and, again, applying and making your resume. And again, my goal was just to get a job, see how it goes for a year, see if I'm happy. And then now that I spent 2 years at the school and I am happy, now set a new goal of maybe, again, going back to school and getting my supervisor certificate. So take it one step at a time, but I know my immediate goal after Kean was just get a teaching job, get something that was relevant to my career.
So since I had a gap between starting undergrad and going back, I knew when I went back that I wanted to go to law school. So I was planning on that ahead of time once I went back. So that meant about 2 years before I graduated, I started studying for the law school admissions test, which meant that for 4 months, the little free time that I had on weekends was spent studying for the law school admissions test. It meant no social life for 4 months, but it worked out because I did well on the exam, and I went to a top law school. And at top law school, I knew I needed a certain GPA to be in play for the top firms, so that was my next goal. So as Molly was saying, it's small steps. And then I guess now that I've started, my professional goals are small. It might sound really silly, but one of my goals for currently is to write a contract provision that is not touched by a partner. It's a lot harder than it sounds. You'd be surprised how many ways you can write a sentence that only has 8 words and then turn it down to 7 and then cut it down to 6. So that's my current goal. And then after that, it's going to be to draft an entire section of the contract and then the entire contract. So those are the kind of things that you're doing, is just setting small goals. And final goal, draft an entire merger agreement by myself. Right now, I can draft it, but by the time it's done, it's completely scribbled out and rewritten. But so you start small by take a small piece and then work your way up. Is that saying that how do you eat a whale? 1 bite at a time?
Okay. For myself, the first thing I would say is goals. Throughout life, you're always going to set goals. I remember after I graduated, my ultimate goal, as everyone mentioned, is to get a job. But ultimately, my goal was to go to law school. And I ended up taking a route of being a paralegal, working on a mid-sized law firm. And then that's when my motivation changed. The motivation wasn't really all about money or all about fighting another lawyer inside a courtroom. the battle. I was anticipating the battle. I was wanted a battle, and so my goal changed where ultimately I just wanted to be in the IT field. As far as just now with my goal, it's never ending and it's changing. For a few years, probably about 6 to 7 years, I was a business owner in the IT field as well, and I went back into the corporate world. But ultimately, my ultimate goal is to also go back into owning my own business. I mean, technology has changed, and it's consistently changing. You hear about security when you think about Target and all of those different things. So there's a lot of different open field within the IT industry. Another goal also, and hopefully this doesn't come across really bad, but this is one of those, it's no controversial statement, but also what I've found throughout the years in the business, as I mentioned, I've worked in a lot of Fortune 500 company, but sometimes it's usually not a lot of African American that is part of those businesses. And I'm not saying the company purposely did that, but for whatever reason. But my goal and motivation is to always be successful as an African American. Also as an international student or someone coming from an international background. And my background was, I was the first generation high school, first generation college as well. So there's a lot of motivation to be successful, not only for myself, but also for my family as well.
So at this time, I would like to thank our amazing panelists. Can we please give them another round of applause, please? I would also like to thank Mr. Jeff Mullins from Rebuilding Warriors. We can give him a round of applause, please. So for you guys that came out tonight, I really hope that you guys were able to, learn something or gain some insight or just, hear some stories of things that you might eventually experience. Like I said, my view for this past year is learning from the people that have already done it. What better way to do it? And like I said, I would like to thank for all of our panelists for coming out tonight. I would like to thank Alumni Association. I would like to thank ALI for all of your support. Like I said, once again, thank you for Rebuilding Warriors for coming out. If you guys haven't done so, please stop by that table or please stop by the Graduate and Part-Time Student Council table. We do have some handouts for you guys as well as the Relay for Life. Please, 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 please donate. And if any of you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to network with any of our panelists, or please feel free to do so before they leave tonight. So once again, I would like to thank all of you for coming out. Thanks for making this program a great adventure, and hopefully we can continue to keep this learning process, next semester going.